I'd like to invite Ray Lee, who's an award-winning sound artist and composer. I think I first worked with Ray 30 years ago when I commissioned him and his collaborator then, Harry Dawes, to make a digital sound work with a group of learning disabled people that the theatre company I was working with were working with. So that was 30 years ago, but he's done lots of things since then, many of them large-scale kinetic sound works. The worldwide hit of Siren, his monumental outdoor works, Chorus and Ring Out, and last year, or over the last couple of years, Congregation, which I think Ray will mention, so I won't actually steal any spheric thunder on that. He's won awards. His Ethnometric Museum won the 2012 British Composer of the Year for Sonic Art Prize.
That's ethometric.
Ethometric, yeah, I know that. I just read it wrong. Forcefield was awarded an honorary mention in the Prix Arts Electronica in Linz in 2008. And he also is a professor. He's a professor of sound art at Oxford Brookes University. Thank you, Ray.
So, about 7 years ago, I was stood on a street corner outside the National Theatre Studio. I was doing a little residency there. And I had in my hand a silver sphere, much like this one. And I had put a little loudspeaker in the sphere and a little MP3 player, and it was making a funny beeping electronic noise. And I noticed how odd people thought I looked. And I thought, gosh, this is really interesting. And I had a crazy idea. I thought, what if this sphere wanted to take me somewhere I didn't know where I was going. But by making different sounds, it was going to direct me there, a bit like a game of warmer and colder. So if I was going in the right direction, it would make one sound. If I started going in the wrong direction, it would warn me somehow with the sound. And then I imagined, what would it be like if there were loads of people all over the place, all over the city, and they'd all been given these spheres? And perhaps they thought it was just them. And they all were setting off at the same time, holding a sphere, and then they'd go around a corner and they'd bump into someone else holding a sphere, and then they'd be walking along, and then all of a sudden they'd go around another corner and there'd be some more people holding spheres, until there was this science fiction procession of people holding beeping spheres. And to the general public who weren't part of this, who weren't involved in it, it'd be a little bit like their city had been taken over by an invasion. And I thought, how original, how unique, what a great idea. And then I remembered an episode of Doctor Who that I must have watched when I was about 8, 1968, with a whole load of silver spheres controlled by the great intelligence, and these spheres were the control mechanism for these robots. And the spheres had a homing mechanism inside them, and if you took the sphere out of the robot, the spheres would move by themselves back. And I thought, oh, okay, fair enough. What I'm actually doing is I'm making an episode of Doctor Who. I thought this was a really cool idea. And the thing was that when I told other people about this idea, they went, hey, Ray, that's really quite an interesting idea. And they also said, so how are you going to do it? And I had absolutely no idea whatsoever. So I make and have been making large-scale outdoor works, pieces like a chorus, very large tripods, rotating arms with speakers on, creating an immersive sonic kinetic experience for people. Pieces also like more recent piece, Ring Out, giant pendulous mechanisms with electronic sound. People walk around them, get immersed into this sonic world. However, 100 silver homing interactive spheres, slightly outside my comfort zone. So I started working with a colleague of mine from Oxford University, and he suggested that we could do this with mobile phones. Of course, mobile phones are great. They've got GPS. They've got everything you need to do something like this, except I wanted them to be in silver spheres, because the silver sphere was really, really important to me. I was really interested in the touch of the object, the weight of the object, the visual references that you'd get from this object, and that it wasn't technology. It was just a thing. And he made an app for the phone which kind of did what I wanted to do, but not quite. And then I had a phone and I had a sphere, and I couldn't quite make the two things combine. I had this sort of vision of having to hack 100 mobile phones and put them inside somehow, and I could just imagine the whole thing going horribly wrong. So thanks to an opportunity from Milton Keynes Festival, organised by Bill, to do a version of this idea with the spheres, but for an indoor context, I started working with Steve Simons. Steve Simons is an artist, expert on locative media. He's actually going to be one of the artists working on the Creative Lab this week, so some of you may come into contact with Steve. Steve suggested that we use Raspberry Pis. Raspberry Pis are great. You turn them on, it works. And the other thing about Steve was that he really got the idea. So he conceptualized this piece as the secret location being like a giant magnet, and the spheres were being magnetically drawn to the center by this magnet. However, I needed to be 100% convinced by this process before I could go any further. So I was able to raise some money for some research and development. I got some money from Without Walls with their Blueprint program, some money from Appetite in Stoke, some money from Oxford Brookes University, some help from 101, and we built 10 prototypes, 10 prototype interactive GPS-controlled spheres. So Steve designed the system, I worked on the hardware and the overall concept. The idea was that they would set a final location, and the sphere would want to go towards this final location. So we tested them, and then we tested them with 5 or 6 different groups of people, like a group here from the students from the BR lab in Bristol, who were fantastic because it's absolutely their world. It's all about creating narratives with creative technology. And through that process, one of the things that we realized was that the sounds that I was using to convey direction were absolutely critical. I didn't want to tell people when I gave them the sphere, oh, okay, this sound means you're going the right way, and this sound means you're going the wrong way. I wanted that to come out of, for them to learn it for themselves. So initially, in part of this process, some of the feedback that came back to me was that some of the sounds for going the wrong way were a little bit too alarming. So I had one sound, if you were going the wrong way, it literally was a nina, nina, nina. And so you had someone walking through a car park, holding something that looked a bit like a bomb, making an alarm sound. And frankly, they said, Ray, look, we can't do this. It really makes me feel very uncomfortable. And I agreed with them. So the sounds that I had to work had to go somewhere between giving them the right idea, but they also had to be sounds they could live with, that they could live with as they walked along. So it was absolutely vital for me that this was not about the technology. We've heard that many times today. I think it's something we all agree with. So this was about what is the experience for the audience. So I involved Stavroula Kunadea to help me develop the audience experience. This is Stavroula becoming one of the guardians of the spheres, the people who gave out the spheres to the audience in the different locations. And how we introduce the idea of taking a sphere for a walk, or rather the sphere taking you for a walk, became critically important. So what we thought about was that we wanted the spheres to be something that were alive. They weren't a bit of dead kit. They had a personality. When they were going the right direction, they were happy. They sounded happy. When they started to go the wrong way, they sounded a bit sad. If you persisted and kept going in the wrong direction, they got a bit agitated, and if you went the wrong way, they really got quite cross. So that was extremely important to get across to people. Keep the sphere happy. You might have to put up with the sphere being a bit unhappy. If you stand still, the system doesn't have any data, so it gets a bit agitated. So we describe the sphere as being agitated. It's a bit impatient, so keep moving. It's important to keep moving because it gets agitated. If you go inside, obviously you lose your GPS signal, so they get a bit claustrophobic if they go inside. Once I was absolutely convinced that this thing was going to work, I then felt confident in trying to raise the funds to make it happen. So we were very lucky to get funding from Without Walls. We got commissioned from Norfolk and Norwich Festival, from Out There Festival, Sea Change Arts. We got funding from Oxford Contemporary Music, from Oxford Brookes University, and again, a lot of help from 101. And for a month, we turned this place into a sphere factory. And we probably ate, slept, and probably even dreamt about spheres. So, for example, the spheres are held together by magnets. There's about 16 magnets in each sphere. We made 100 spheres, that's 1,600 magnets, each of which has to be individually glued into a ring. And to Olivia and to Hannah and to Ed and to Tom and all the rest, I'm truly sorry for... You've maybe just about got over it by now. So I relied on an amazing team, basically, to make this happen. So 7 years later, after being stood on the street in London, Congregation went on tour. We have done 9 festivals this year, 8 in this country, 1 abroad. And about 1,500 people have so far individually taken a sphere for a walk. Obviously, many thousands more have noticed this strange procession of spheres going through their city. Finally arriving at the secret location, the meeting point of the spheres, waiting for the mothership to arrive. And we haven't lost one yet. Okay, thank you.